Hi, everybody. This is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. I got a nice Hawaiian shirt on. We're having a Hawaiian day. This is my attempt to pretend like we're all laid back and relaxed, but the reality is we're working our tails off to clean everything up and get everything ready to go. Some of you may have noticed that some of the exchanges wallets are disabled, and there's good reason for that because they're upgrading to Shelley. And boy, there's a lot of fun and excitement there. We're happy to get them on enterprise-grade software, and we're happy to get them on firmer foundations. And it's great to work with Binance and Bittrex and Wobi and the rest of the gang. We're really close to the finish line here for Shelley. And I can't help but think about the nature of feedback loops, which is the purpose of this video. You know, complex systems has many subtopics, but one of the most interesting parts of self-organizing, self-emerging systems is this concept that your system gets changed by the actions of the past. So we have a lot of deep, detailed things in the design of Cardano that are very different from the nature of Bitcoin. So for example, when you think about staking in stake pools, you think about all the parameters, the reward parameters, parameters like how many stake pools should there be, the pledge amount, the formulas behind them, how that system works. The mere existence of it inspires people to think about it and change it and propose things. Just the other day, I saw an incredibly long conversation in our forums with Lars Brunius, and there was an alternative formula provided for certain parameters in our system. And our chief scientist saw it, and he posted a picture of it and said, hey, we should talk about this in our next chief scientist meeting. This is a formula that came up from our community, not us. And it just is an amazing experience when you see things like that, because you say to yourself, wow, basically the mere existence of the system, the fact that people are incentivized to think about the system, encourages people to contribute thoughts and ideas to it. And what does this effectively mean? That over time, the system self-evolves through feedback loops. And that means we now have hundreds of people thinking every day, one way or another, with financial incentives to think every day about how do we make the system more fair? How do we make the system more decentralized? How do we make the system more egalitarian? Or is that even a good idea? And it's now a dialogue, and it's a dialogue we listen to, we participate in, and other people listen to and participate in. And that means that over time, the system will become that way. It's the same for the voting. You know, at the end of the month, we'll have our product summit, our product update that we always do. And we'll start introducing basically how people are going to participate in Voltaire. And in short order, we're going to get lots of ballots. And there's open questions about, well, what is a good proposal versus what is a bad proposal? What is the minimum standard we as a community need to have in order to accommodate that? And what process should we as a community go through before it even gets to the point of people voting on it? And how do they vote? Quadratic voting, preference voting, threshold voting, all these types of ideas at some point will work their way into the Voltaire framework. And the way we've constructed things is every 6 to 8 weeks, we can rapidly evolve. So that's another example of a feedback loop where you, the community, participate, we operate, other people work, and then over time, the system becomes very different. So that thread is starting. And very soon, we're going to have the native asset standard, and we're going to be moving ERC20s over to the testnet to demonstrate that, building security tokens, developing token spending policy, all kinds of really cool concepts. And that will create a feedback loop to evolve the token standard to make it more functional, as will exchanges and integration partners like wallets. Why? Because they have to list them. They have to secure them. And they'll come back to us and say, hey, this standard isn't as good as it needs to be. We need to improve it. For example, we had an idea of how to list cryptocurrencies on exchanges, and then talking to many other people, working with Rosetta, which is a Coinbase product, and all these other things, it really inspired us to redesign the way to list cryptocurrencies on exchanges. And what does this mean? It means that we now are converging to enterprise-grade software in a single stack. So it means the very same thing that will allow Binance and Bittrex and Wobi and these other guys to have hundreds of thousands of accounts and do operations on massive sets of transactions is in the software that you have for free. It's there. It's one software stack. And when we make security improvements to Cardano's stack, for example, layering in the capacity to do cold storage and use hardware devices in that stack for exchanges, it will work its way down all the way to you, the user. It's really an incredible thing when you think about it. So native asset standard, it'll evolve. That's another feedback loop. And it just, you guys use it, we modify it, and it grows very rapidly. Then you look at smart contracts like Plutus and Marlowe and these concepts, these ideas. It's super exciting. We're going to open those floodgates, and we're taking a lot of the things that have been learned from the Haskell world, things that have been learned from Ethereum and Solidity and Web3 and all these concepts, and we're blending it with a lot of the new, this DSL-driven approach and Plutus. And what's going to happen is we're going to get hundreds of developers write stuff, and they're going to come up with all these crazy, wonky, interesting ideas, and they're not going to be super happy with the first generation. No one ever is. And based on that, the system will self-evolve. And if you think about the totality of all of this, the concept that the smart contract stack will rapidly evolve, the concept that the incentives layer of the system will rapidly evolve, the concept that the governance layer of the system will rapidly evolve, and the enterprise use of the software will rapidly evolve the software. You have all these forcing factors that will cause Cardano as a platform to become infinitely more resilient, useful, faster, secure, and ultimately be fit for purpose for pretty much anything people would want to do with it in the context of a financial operating system. And this, in a way, I think is the highest achievement of engineering. Oftentimes, when you build something, no matter how great the thing you build is, it can be a monument that stands for thousands of years. It's perfect. It's as good as it's going to get at the finishing of construction. The pyramids will never look more pristine, beautiful, and elegant than at the time that they were finished. And despite the fact that they've stood for thousands of years, they clearly show the signs of erosion. The system we have constructed here is better tomorrow. And that's the standard. That's the power of feedback loops. That's the magic of self-evolving resilient systems, is that they get stronger, they grow. It's almost like a life form. It's organic in that respect. It's like real-time evolution. And every piece is there. You have an incentive to bring in brilliant business people. You have an incentive to bring in people who think every day about how to keep it secure. You have an incentive to pay people. And you actually have a treasury system that can do that, which will attract increasingly stronger and better, smarter actors and to contribute to the ecosystem. So all those pieces are there, and we have the right foundations for it, and we have the right culture for it. That discussion about the stake pool parameters was just amazing. And the fact that we had something so deep and so profound so early in the system is a direct consequence of the things that were done in the past and the processes followed in the past. Ouroboros as a protocol continues to evolve. We're now taking into account very profound nuances that no one in the space has really thought about, like how to recover from spikes of dishonest majority without using a checkpoint in a proof of stake system. And we're looking into all kinds of new concepts, like one-shot signatures, for example. Those are signatures that take advantage of quantum cryptography so that they can only be used once and then they self-destruct. It's really amazing where you can go with these types of ideas. And over time, they will eventually be made available to the broader world. And the very same feedback loops that allow our system to evolve, allow our system to ask, how can we accommodate these types of things and benefit from them and pull them into the system? The most magical part of all of this is it's universal. So the moment that we adopt it, it's available to everyone, every single user of the system for whatever they want to do. The richest person and the poorest person are the same in terms of their access and capabilities to them. Because the very same thing that makes your money private can make your vote private. The very same thing that makes your money secure can make your vote secure. The very same thing that can allow you to do a $10 billion massive multi-jurisdictional transaction to acquire a company could use the same settlement system and the same foundations and frameworks as the thing that can allow you to tip 2 pennies to your favorite YouTube live stream. Think about that. Think about how amazing that is. So feedback loops matter. And I'm so incredibly glad that we're starting to really see them in the Cardano ecosystem. There's a lot of work that we're going to have to do moving into the future, especially in 2021. And that's going to be a high priority that we make sure that those loops are there, they're quantifiable, they exist. And I'd love to collaborate with great organizations like the Santa Fe Institute and others that study these things full time and bring on some dedicated researchers whose day job is to think about how to build systems and promote these things, especially when we talk about the economic dimensions of the system and we talk about the expression and consent parts of the system. And in essence, this is probably the greatest advantage that we have over other projects like Bitcoin and even Ethereum in that respect. We do not require, when you have the existence of self-organizing, self-evolving feedback loops to improve the system, centralized control. And we do not require a deification of the past or of prior founders to get ourselves where we need to go. We have certainty that the system will change, but it will change always remembering where it came from and the values and principles that it has, and it'll change in order to accommodate more and more people. So we can go from thousands to tens of thousands to where we're at today in the hundreds of thousands to the millions and eventually the billions. Working with exchanges, you can get a sense of how vast we've already gotten because they're dealing with hundreds of thousands of addresses, and the accounting systems that they're using, the addresses actually match verified users. So the fact that we're seeing that scale just on the exchange side is one example of how big Cardano's grown. But in essence, we're very small in the greater scheme of things. And if we keep this growth rate and this trend, we will see tens to hundreds of millions, eventually billions of people in this framework. And every single new user gives us all their strength and knowledge and capabilities, and we give them ours. That's the work of a lifetime, the pursuit of a lifetime. And I hope it fascinates you as much as it does me. And I hope it really does give you the same sense of awe as it gives me. We don't normally see these things in humankind. And today we have them. So here's to the future. Here's to the upcoming hard fork and the many more that come. Here's to all the progress we've made and all the progress we will make. And thank you all for listening. Thank you all for hearing my pithy musings. And I look forward to the feedback loops of the future. Cheers.